people talk about integrative as mixing pharmaceutical with holistic, but I look at my herbalism also as very integrative because of what you
Oh,
just said. I'm using
yeah.
herbs from all over the world.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full-time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome. Today we have a really awesome guest with us. Dr. Dohmen is a mobile vet and educator in Delaware. She's received training in acupuncture, in Ayurveda, in food therapy, Bach Flower Essences, and most extensively in herbal medicine. She completed Rosemary Gladstar's apprenticeship in 2007 in herbal medicine. She received her MS in Therapeutic Herbalism from Maryland University's Integrative Health in 2014. She was accepted as a registered herbalist through the AHG in 2020. She is a full-time continuing educator and lectures regularly on veterinary herbal medicine and other holistic topics. In 2017, she co-created the only hands-on veterinary herbal medicine course for Western veterinary practices in the U.S., and that is located in North Carolina. Dr. Dohmen is the past president of the Veterinary Botanical Medical Association. That's freaking awesome. She was awarded the 2022 Educator of the Year by the AHVMA Council of Elders. How much more awesome can she get? So welcome, Lori. I'm so glad you're here with me today. I love everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. Hope I can live up to the hype you've given me. But yeah, I'm very proud of my accomplishments and I love what I do. So, it's definitely you never work a day in your life when you love what you do for me. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have definitely created your own niche for yourself. It's very unique. And I love that you followed your passion into herbal medicine and then created educational content around it as an educator, and that you also retain some component of your roots as a mobile veterinarian. And so I wanted to delve a little bit into your story and what your journey was like. So I know that you started out primarily house call practice. You retain a few clients right now that you're still working with. And then you transitioned into being primarily an educator. And I understand also that now the people that you work with tend to be mobile vets as well who are studying the herbal medicine. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about your own path and hear a little more about that story and what that transition was like for you a bit.
So I went to the University of Pennsylvania, which I know you started an internship or a residency there as well.
Undergrad. Yeah, I was just a student.
Okay. Oh,
Unfortunately.
And
that later.
yeah. So I always wanted to be a vet and I always wanted to go to Penn because I grew up in the area, but it was never what I was looking for. I went there and it started with us learning about how cats' kidneys worked. And they said that they digest protein 100% of the time, that they never have the off switch. And then we walked out and the Hill sponsors were literally pitching us that day And
Yeah.
the first ingredient in their kidney formula is corn.
Yeah.
After I've just been taught that they need protein through their kidneys all the time, not to auto digest their kidneys.
Right.
And that didn't work for me. And then to just continue the kidneys story, because it was all about kidneys for me at Penn. When I was in my clinical rotations, when I was in small animal medicine, we had a client whose cat was in kidney failure. And I sat down, and it was an older man, lovely man. And I sat down and I talked with him, and I said to him, we can treat kidney failure and your cat can live a very long time, but we cannot cure it. I was literally taken out of circulation, put only in the back. I was told I could never talk to another client. I couldn't see any clients, and they gave me a C because I told the truth.
Rude asshole.
So, it was so funny. I wanted to go to Penn my whole life, and now I'm like, why did I go there? I mean, I think I got a really good book education, and I learned a lot, and I think it made me a good vet, but I never gelled with that mindset. And one of my best friends from vet school graduated, and she did an internship, and then she immediately went holistic. She did all the chi classes, and she said, Lori, you've got to do this. You've got to do this. And it took me a while, and I had a mobile practice, but I always said, I want to treat my patients and my clients like I treat my family. So when I started having children, and I was very judicious about vaccines, which I already was with my patients, but really I did a lot of research with my children, and we made all their own baby food from scratch, and we used cloth diapers, and, it's a very natural approach. And I said to my husband, I said, I can't keep saying that this is my family if I don't get on board with treating them as holistically as I'm treating my human family.
Yeah.
And when my youngest son was 1, I went to acupuncture school, which didn't make my husband super happy. I was gone 1 weekend a month because Rosemary Gladstar's last live apprenticeship started a month after acupuncture ended. I was gone a weekend a month for a year, and I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So God bless my husband. I love him. He's great. But I fell in love with the herbs, and they just really sang to me, and that whole experience really sang to me. And so that's where I've gone with my holistic practice. And they call it Western herbalism, but I have a problem with that term because we use herbs from around the world.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we use them in the Western medical tradition. So where I treat kidney failure still, but I treat it with herbs. I still can't cure it, but I can make them live a very long time, but I still can't cure it. But I can make them live longer than you can with pharmaceuticals. I really am positive of that.
Awesome.
But so I treat kidney failure, whereas if I had gone Chinese, I would be treating like a kidney jing or a kidney chi or, something like that. So that's really the difference. And I've gotten away from saying I do Western herbs. What I do is herbs into Western practices. And I think that's important because I think otherwise we dishonor. I still use the same herb as a Chinese person with, the main herb for kidneys is Romania. And that doesn't matter what modality you're working in. So I think about it that way. And eventually I got pulled into teaching because I was very integrative. So when I was on the VBMA board and becoming president, I got pulled to speak because I was integrative, because they thought I'd work well at more conventional conferences, which I teach at a lot now. And I loved it. I found I just had so much to say about it. And I also found out that there was no herbal course for veterinarians. When I spoke to someone about it, I was like, how do you get trained? She's like, you train human and you just train yourself. And I thought that's not acceptable.
Right.
We need our own program. And so Dr. Chris August, who I know has also been on your podcast, she and I actually co-wrote the class together.
That's
and
awesome.
she's moved on from teaching live. But, she and I actually sat down and wrote the class and started the school together. And I just was traveling so much with teaching. I couldn't keep up a full-time practice and employees and overhead and, all of that. So I pared it down, and it's slowly through attrition of some animals that I kept and whatever. I have a really small group of people. It's like 10 clients, but it's like 50 animals because when you do house calls, they have more animals, you do more animals, you see more animals. But I've always loved the house calls because, again, it goes to the holistic for me. You see them in their element, the household, you see what's going on, you see what toxins are there that you don't Yes, we all know when our clients smoke when they're in an exam room and it reeks. But
Yeah.
we don't know about the trash on the floor or the grandma, who's feeding on the side. And there's so much, we don't know about the anger in the house or the little kid or whatever until we're in that space. So I think that house call vets are better holistic vets.
Hmm.
And so that's why, I retain that. And
That's amazing. Yeah, I want to applaud you for your longstanding commitment to education in the holistic veterinary community. It sounds like you've been really pivotal in shaping what is now the holistic veterinary paradigm and body of knowledge. So that's really, really cool. And I love that. And, I'm kind of kicking myself right now because what you described as like how people used to find out about Western, quote unquote, Western herbalism. I also self-taught. I read a bunch of books and I studied with a few local herbalists who were more on the foraging side of things, mushrooms and stuff like that. But had I known there was actually a form, and I now extrapolate. I'm like, I double check with the poison control. This is not dangerous for an animal, right? And it does this for humans. And then I cross reference everything and, look through the Chinese medicine books, but it's a lot of work. And I'm always just like seeking this, like, what is the accepted, done for me body of knowledge that I can
Right.
download to my brain? So I love that you have that now. And I love also your differentiation between Western herbs, Chinese herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, like, and that it's not necessarily just herbs that are found in the quote unquote West.
Right.
It's applying herbs from all over the world, from the Ayurvedic tradition, from the Chinese medicine tradition, from Native American traditions, a lot of
Mhm.
times, and then just plants that are around.
Right.
And that's you're using it in the Western medical mindset, basically, the frame of reference as to how you're using those. So that's so interesting. I'm glad you shared that. It's very,
Thank
very
you.
interesting because I use the term Western herbs and Chinese herbs, but I hadn't even really put a lot of thought into what that meant. I was just like, I know there's Native American influence in a lot of the quote unquote Western herbs that we use, but I don't know beyond that what I even mean. What do
Yeah.
I mean? Like there's also a lot of crossover too, like plants and mushrooms and seeds and shells and things that are found all over the world
Mhm.
and are
Yeah.
used just a little bit differently depending on what the thought process is.
It's just a matter of species variation, and the same genus is all around the world, and that we're using the same genus for the same things with our local species. So,
Mm.
it's great when we can use local native plants, and that's wonderful, but it's not always practical and not everything grows. So,
Right.
having this wide body of knowledge, there's a couple herbs I can think of that I use regularly that come from Africa too. So,
Ah,
yeah.
that's so cool. What are they? Now I'm curious.
So one is devil claw, which is for
Okay.
arthritis. Yeah, and it
Okay.
actually stops osteoclasts
Neat.
from breaking down bone, and it also rebuilds cartilage. It is actually endangered, so I use it very judiciously, but it's a wonderful, wonderful herb. And the other one is buchu, which is a
Love that
urinary
one.
antiseptic.
All
So
right.
like an antibiotic
That's
for
kick ass.
so those are the two I can think of right off the top of my head that are
Yeah.
African. But
Hmm.
but yes, I'm trained, like you said, in Ayurveda. So I use a lot of Ayurvedic herbs. I actually now write a blog as well for Ayush Herbs, which is the biggest veterinary
Oh,
Ayurvedic herb company in the
that's
country. And they do a really
cool.
wonderful job.
Oh,
So
that's amazing. I've got
I've
nervous
started
practice
writing for
before.
them. That's
That's
really
really
fun.
neat. I've been really into Amalaki Rasayana from the Ayurvedic tradition, and I feel now that every patient of mine should be on it, and I will be eating it for breakfast every day. So I've been a little bit dabbling in the, Ayurvedic herbalism as well, but that's so cool. And I mean, we're really kind of globalized now. Like were never available to us in the medical world or the veterinary world 100 or less years ago. Now, all medicine is usable everywhere. And so the term Western is not quite right.
Yeah.
Like we're really drawing on a lot of different cultures and using healing practices from all over the place and honoring those places and practices and traditions by incorporating them and using them with our modalities here. It's cool.
So I look at integrative as, people talk about integrative as mixing pharmaceutical with holistic, but I look at my herbalism also as very integrative because of what you
Oh,
just said. I'm using
yeah.
herbs from all over the world. And even what we consider local herbs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are actually naturalized and have been here for only, 500 or 600 years. They weren't
Mm.
actually truly native to North America, although they are integrated as well at this point. So,
Right, right. Well,
so
that's
it's
so very interesting. The process of global mixing and blending and colonization, of course, has been happening for a long, long time. And so it can be difficult to trace where exactly everything is from. And, every culture sort of uses their herb in a slightly different and unique way. And
Mhm.
it's just so interesting to me. So interesting. I love it. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. I wanted to talk a little bit about your herbal medicine program. So you've got Purple Moon Western Herbal Apprenticeship. Is that right? Is that the big one right now? Is
Well,
that
Purple Moon Herbs and Studies is my company.
okay?
And the Veterinary Herbal Apprenticeship and Retreat is the big 5 module class that's a full training to make a clinician fully comfortable using herbs in practice and
Mm-hmm.
training. So,
Awesome. Can you tell me more about that program and what else you do with your business?
so that program, that's the one that Chris and I wrote, the Veterinary Herbal Apprenticeship and Retreat.
Mhm.
And it is 5 long weekends that we spread over. We start in the fall and we go into the spring. We kind of take the winter off. I kind of modeled that after Ivis's acupuncture course, where they took the
Cool.
holiday season off. So
Yeah.
I thought that was wise and not that fun to be in the Outer Banks in, December or January. And I do teach in the Outer Banks. It's a beautiful location. And when we talk about the retreat part and the self care, as vets, I mean, I don't need to go into it. We all know why we need self care. And so just the location brings that in. It's beautiful, it's calming, it's a good place. And also, in a more practical way, my husband and I plan to retire down there. I didn't want to make all the contacts and start teaching a course in Delaware and then, 10 years later have to move and start all of that over. Our plan is my youngest son is going to be a senior in high school this year. So we're down there more and more all the time. And so it was just easier for me to start teaching there immediately. But the self care aspect of it is just, that's what attracted my husband and I to the area is how good it is for the soul. My kids say all the time, when I come home, they're like, "You're happier in the Outer Banks, Mom."
Oh,
And my youngest is actually looking at colleges close to the Outer Banks and Virginia Beach area. So I'm really excited about that. But that's why I teach there. And so we do these retreat weekends and we go through, again, because I do it with the Western medical system, we take each organ system and we teach you the herbs of the organ system. But as well, we do labs. So you learn to make all the products. And I get students that say, we're never going to make products, we're going to buy them. But there's so many products on the market and you have to know quality. You have to know what's good. And you can't just take the list that I give you. Nobody should be taught by one school, not just me,
right,
but, my school
right,
and my other
right,
educators. We should be bigger than that and able to learn for ourselves.
right,
So
right. Of course.
you have to be able to assess quality. So by making products, you learn how to assess quality.
Love that.
So we do
Awesome.
that. Of course, we have all the background information that you need, understanding of the herbs and the concepts of the herbs and how to formulate and how to use the herbs and all of that. We do an herb walk every module. So we go somewhere and we look at the plants that they have. We start out really easy with some very cultured gardens, and then we go out and go trekking through the marsh, and it's just beautiful. And so we put all that together. We always have extra self care, one lecture that ties herbalism and self care. And we do little exercise breaks. We do longer lectures because I've found that when you go to a conference and they do a 15-minute lecture and then you get a 10-minute break, we can't go to the bathroom in 10 minutes and get back. And, God forbid you want a cup of tea or coffee, like
Horror.
you're late and you miss,
Hmm.
or they start late and you can't say enough. So we do 1.5 to 2 hour lectures and then we take half-hour breaks because I find that that just really works better. And in those breaks, we have some exercise things. Chris actually started it. And now that she's gone, I've had to pick it up, but because
Hmm.
students love it. And each weekend we have a dedicated exercise. So you do it enough times and they're just like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But you do it enough times that you learn it. So if you want to incorporate it into your life, you've got it memorized by the end of the time. So, and we make a tea that's themed to whatever the theme of that module is.
Oh, that's so
That's
sweet.
special for each month. And we serve breakfast. My youngest son has always made all the muffins, so I'm going to have to pick that up when he leaves. One more year of him cooking for me. So, and he's a great chef. And we do a movie night with desserts where we watch Juliet of the Herbs. Juliet de Berkeley-Levy is the fairy godmother of veterinary herbalism. And so we watch her movie one
That's so
night
cool.
because she's so paramount to us. So it's really a lot of fun, and it's a great class. And there's homework, again, because you have to be able to do it on your own. And we want you to do it on your own, but we want to guide you through that. But we need you to be able to learn beyond the 150 herbs we teach you. There's a lot more herbs out there, and you might want to use different ones. So you have to be able to do all that. But the very last day, we do student cases, and everybody sends in cases, and then they work them up like live, like shout out herbs for this. And then we do like a quiz show with prizes, and the students figure out how much they've learned. And it's just like a huge confidence booster at the end because we know how much they've learned. We can tell by reading their homework from month 1 to month 5. But they don't always have that confidence. And that last day really makes them realize that they know more than they think they do. So, and we have, a whole mighty network with conversations. So before they're ready, they can send all their cases and everybody can learn from them together. We'll give advice, but we ask them to do it in a group way. So everybody learns. And so, yeah, so it's good.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Well, come join us anytime.
Yeah. You can see the gears turning, right?
Yes. We'd love to have you.
Sounds marvelous.
But, again, the house call comes in because a lot of them, as they are transitioning to holistic, and they're taking this class, they realize when we do a holistic exam as one of our lectures, that if you're really doing that, like everything I said in the beginning and everything, you have to look at their lifestyle. You have to look at their whole lives. I mean, I think of a client when I was in an office situation whose dog there was something wrong with it and we could not figure it out. I don't remember exactly all the details. I couldn't figure it out and I sent it to internists and they couldn't figure it out. And this one day the dog walks in and it's head pressing against the wall. And I'm like, has it always done this? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you just spent thousands of dollars and now I have to put your dog down because, it's completely end stage neurologic and it has been probably all this time. And that's been the whole issue. But again, I feel like if I'd been in the house, I would have seen it a lot sooner because it wouldn't have been on a leash where it didn't have the freedom to move and show me that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for elaborating on that because I was about to ask you for a little bit more elaboration. You said house call vets make the best holistic vets, and I think house call vets make the best vets, period. Just kidding. I mean, all of us are incredibly skilled and talented at whatever it is that we do. But I think that there's something almost intangible, intangibly valuable on so many levels. One, that you see the animal relaxed. They're not coming to you in a state of heightened cortisol drenched system where everything is altered by the time you see them. And then, I mean, let alone your ability to evaluate the animal is influenced by that cortisol response, but also the animal experience the cortisol response. And that's not good, right? In light of whatever disease process it was, right? Of course, there are times the animal has to go into, obviously, right? That's not up for debate. But when it's avoidable, it's so much more better. And I think, we can spend more time with our patients. We can really see their lifestyle. And lifestyle is a tremendous part of what causes disease and what we can address to correct disease and ameliorate suffering. And so to cut out the place they live and see the lifestyle they live, like that's a huge loss to the ability of the practitioner to be able to be effective, I feel. And so, yeah, I agree. There's just so many things we don't catch when we're not in the home of the animal. Like I can look at the litter box and be like, oh, I understand, or you just see where the animal's jumping up and down and stuff like that. You just get a much more literally holistic view of the patient and their life and the challenges that they might face.
I also think that you get a better rapport with your clients. They buy in better.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more personal. Yeah. you're in their home. It's personal. And of course they all offer you, can I get you something to drink? Can I get you something to eat? And I'm always like, no, I'm here as a professional. I'm not here to socialize. Thank you very
I
much.
am.
And can I use your bathroom? But I'm not, but it goes to they're treating me as a guest,
Mhm.
as a friend. And
Yeah.
that's the rapport that you get. And I think also I did a whole literature review of placebo effect. It was in humans, but even people who knew they were getting placebos, there's something to be said for that nurturing.
Mhm.
One woman that stuck with me in these literature reviews was she said she had IBD and it cleared just talking to the doctor like
Mhm.
every 3 weeks, whatever
Mhm.
it was, every 6 weeks. And when the clients buy in, they project, like you said, that safety, that security, that positivity to their pet. And so the placebo effect trickles down and the animal's going to get better. And this one vet, he says that really the medicine doesn't matter. It's the intent in the medicine that matters. And so I think that whole thing, when you're house call, you do that better and they receive it better. And it's just better medicine, not just on the exam side, but also
Right.
on the treatment side.
Oh
So,
man, I love that so much, and it reminds me of an experience that I very recently had. It was an experience out of the country, and I'm not gonna talk too much about it here on air. You know what it is, but I'm not gonna go into it now. But there was a phrase, an expression that kept coming up: "The medicine is part of the medicine. The medicine is part of the medicine." Right? So it was the container of the experience, the people, the caring, the being heard and seen and witnessed and held in safety within a respectful boundary container that was as much of a healing vehicle as the quote unquote medicine itself.
yeah.
Right. And so I think I'm hearing so much resonance with what you just said.
Yeah.
That the way we hold our clients, the way they feel safe, the way they treat us allows us to
Mhm.
treat them better. It's like a vicious cycle, except it's a beautiful cycle. It's not vicious
Right.
at all, but it's a positive feedback loop, essentially.
And that's self care for us, when vets are struggling with self care in these offices, and we're going to people's houses and being offered drinks and cookies. And I had a client whose dog gave us cookies, every year. And so her new dog makes a different kind of cookies because it couldn't be the same cookies as the old dog. So, we had Gus cookies and
Oh,
now we have Simon cookies. And there's always something for us when we go to the house. And so it heals us too and keeps
yeah,
us able to do our practice and keep us healthy. And that goes back to the holistic. And the whole reason I call it veterinary herbal apprenticeship and retreat, because that retreat part, that, soul healing, we
yeah.
need it.
We need it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so ironic that in our profession, I've said this probably a million times on this podcast and everything that I've ever written, ever. But it's just so ironic to me that we're in a quote unquote healing profession and we're the sick ones. How do you heal? How do you possibly have medicine that's effective if you can't yourself keep it together? And I'm not blaming the practitioner, it's the system. And like the very training that we received to say, you go and sacrifice, you martyr yourself, you get yourself a C for being honest with the client, and you deny yourself sleep and food and going to the bathroom in a reasonable manner. But from that place, there you're going to heal your animals. There you go.
Right.
There you go.
Right.
What a crock of crap. Like, what in the
Completely agree.
actual F? Like how are your entire life's work is to bring health, wellness, well being to other creatures. How on God's green earth are we going to actually do that when we ourselves have been literally taught or forced or encouraged or coerced into doing the opposite for ourselves, right?
Right. Which goes to what I said about, when I started treating my family holistically, it was time for me to make the jump because it should all be a continuum. Us, our family, our patients, our clients,
Yeah,
I think it should all be the same.
it should
So,
be. Yeah.
on that level, I'm really glad I have the human training because I think it's scarier for the people taking my course to treat humans than it was for me taking the human courses to treat animals.
Mhm.
But we try to incorporate to them that the herbs are the herbs and where there are species specific things, we tell them. But like you, we tell them, if they're treating humans, like you say about treating animals, look it up, make sure it's safe, make sure it doesn't have any contraindications, etc. But,
Yeah.
it is definitely, I believe it's all one big flow.
It is one big flow. I love it. I mean, I don't think that you can really practice medicine without considering every component of that relationship. The client to the animal, the client to you, you to the animal, the VCPR essentially. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
think it triangulates in so many ways and it can't be neglected on any of those fronts. Otherwise, the net effect is not healing, it's harm, right?
I
The
agree.
kidney values may improve, but what really happened if someone commits suicide?
Right.
Where was the healing of that? And I'm
Right.
talking like, obviously, this is a microcosm for the whole thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
love.
mean, I had a client who was allergic to shellfish so badly that she couldn't use oyster shell calcium as a food supplement for her animals.
Mm,
And I remember, and she was so worried, about how to take care of her animals. And I'm like, that's okay. There's other sources of calcium. Go to the drugstore. Let's figure this out.
yeah.
And she like started crying. She was like, I thought you were going to say I had to feed it, but it's breaking me out in hives. And I'm like, no, you
Right.
know, we need to find something that's okay for you as well as appropriate for your animal. And I
Yeah.
remember she started crying in the appointment because she'd never had anybody who'd included her,
Yeah.
this is what you need to do for your animal,
Right.
period. And
Right.
yeah,
Period.
you know, this is what I would do were this my animal. But
Hmm.
you have your life and your boundaries.
Hmm.
And so let's figure out what works for you and your animal
Hmm.
because it's not my animal. Yeah.
Right. Right. I love that flexibility that's a part of holistic medicine and integrative
Yes.
medicine.
Yeah.
Like the ability to really see the individual, not just the patient, but the client as well. I think that's really
Well,
important.
we talk about that a lot. Is the client able to medicate this animal twice a day? Is this client able to medicate this animal at all?
Mhm.
How are we going to give this? How are we going to do this? Can this person cook, etc. And we talk about all of that in our course. And we find that very important.
Awesome. How do people find out about your offerings?
I send out emails. I try to do it once a week. It doesn't happen, but I try to send out just little emails once a week. The courses are listed at the bottom, or I'll talk about one of the courses that's, up and coming because you asked about other offerings.
Mhm.
We do weekends with different topics and different teachers. So we just finished a 2-part holistic rehabilitation course that I don't teach at all. A couple rehab people teach it. And it incorporates herbs and acupuncture and laser, shockwave, all the different
Wonderful.
modalities. So what's nice about it is it incorporates so much more than what they get in just rehab school,
Right.
because there are so many more modalities and it touches on all of them. But I have an essential oil one coming up. I have one
Oh,
that I'm really excited about this fall here in California, but a lot of states don't allow cannabis still. And some of the states around here, you can lose your license if you talk about it,
right.
which is a huge problem and dangerous because if clients are giving it anyway, well, THC causes malignant hyperthermia in dogs. And if they're not allowed to tell somebody that, they can kill their dog. And a vet can't tell them that. Are you
Right.
kidding me? So I'm offering this course and it is about the whole endocannabinoid system.
Cool.
And there are a lot of other herbs. You mentioned mushrooms. Reishi mushroom
Mhm.
affects the endocannabinoid receptors. So does echinacea, which most people are familiar with. And so I'm going to talk about all the other herbs. So what people who can't talk about cannabis can do can say, look, this herb does the same thing and it's legal and I can give it to you in a healthy and safe way for your animal.
That's
So
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really excited about it.
Good
I'm in the
for
middle
you.
of writing it. I've been writing it a while in my head, and now I'm actually pen to
Just a
paper
race
as it was.
mushroom. Woo!
Yeah, so it'll be in there. So we have a lot of other things. We did a 2-part hospice class. Both Chris August and some other people are certified in hospice, so they did a 2-part
Wonderful.
hospice class.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, so we offer standalone weekends, and they're all up on my website, purplemoonherbs.com, and they're like I said, I send out little newsletters and I used to advertise in more journals, but I think there are just so many conferences in the world that a lot of journals have stopped accepting conference submissions. But now there wouldn't be any journal if they put in all the conferences that are out there.
Right, right. So I did want to let everyone know that if you do end up joining the House Call Vet Academy, you actually do get a discount for some of these herbal courses through Purple Moon and vice versa. So if you sign up for herbal studies, you can get a discount to the House Call Vet Academy. So I'm just actually really excited about this. Lori and I, two entrepreneurial veterinary women, educators, genuinely supporting each other and building each other up. Imagine that, right? So we're here to all support all of you. So you guys get a discount. And I think, as you said, it's such a beautiful pairing, holistic medicine with house call medicine. It's just a natural synergy between what I teach and what you teach, and how people might benefit from both of our offerings. So I'm just really excited about that. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
A couple things. One, I'm so glad that I found you because, like I said, so many of my students are switching over to house calls and looking for direction. And for me to be able to give them something concrete to support them just makes me really happy. And also, the discount isn't listed on my website because I do a lot of special discounts. But if you register for a course and you just put a note on your registration, then I adjust your price and it gets taken care of. So I'm really glad we did this, and I'm really glad we connected, like you said. I just felt so strongly about getting us collaborating, and I'm thrilled to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Yay. I love having you on the podcast too. This is wonderful. And since we are in the House Call Vet Cafe, can we close up with me taking your order? What's your favorite tea, coffee, beverage to drink, some herbal elixir?
Oh, I have to say it depends on my mood. That's sometimes the problem of being a really well-trained herbalist is there's too many choices.
Mhm.
But two of my favorites right now, as I really resonate with the Ayurveda, like I mentioned, and they do what's called CCFT, which is coriander, cumin, and fennel. And I love that. It's very cleansing. And my friend and now co-teacher, Dr. Ann Scarce, sent me something called mother loving tea.
Mm.
And it's really supportive of us females, and it's beautiful and it's delicious. And so I've been loving that too.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing. And then, okay, I wasn't planning this question, but now I have to ask, what are your top 3 favorite herbs?
Again, it depends on the day. So about familiars, I don't want to get too spiritual because I know not everybody thinks the same way, but not spiritual like godly, but just, and I know people believe if they have spirit animals and things they resonate with. Well, we feel the same way with plants, and I call them my familiars. So my two main familiars are stinging nettles
Yeah.
and valerian. But I
Yeah.
have to say my favorite food herb is dandelions.
All
So I have
right.
to tell you one more story before we
Yes,
go.
let's hear
I know we're going long, but
it.
no, COVID hit. And one of
Mhm.
my favorite herbalists wrote a new foraging cookbook, herbal book, and she did it seasonally. And if
Oh,
you've ever seen the movie Julie and Julia,
I haven't.
so it's about a young woman who cooked her way through Julia Child's cookbook. And she spent a year and she cooked every recipe in it through the
That's kind of
year.
funny.
So I took this seasonal cookbook and I foraged everything that she's not local to me. So some of her plants were different, but everything that did grow on my farm, I cooked all the recipes and made everything and did like the Lori and Rosalie version. And it was wonderful. But dandelions are the ones that they're so versatile. You can use every part of them as food, the root, the leaves, the flowers. And so they're my favorite food herb.
That's kick-ass. That is really awesome. I like dandelions, but I'm really into valerian and I'm really into nettles also. So I'm right there with you. Those are awesome.
I eat nettles all the time too. And
So
I say
bad.
that I keep nettle, like an infused nettle vinegar on
Mhm.
my table. And I say that's my herbal vitamin and mineral supplement because it has all the vitamins and minerals in it. So even
Awesome.
vitamin K. So it's good.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Dr. Lori. It's been awesome, and I am so looking forward to continuing our collaborations.
Absolutely. Me too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for house call vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.
If you're looking for help with ultrasound scanning, check out First Opinion Veterinary Ultrasound for independent machine reviews and online and in-person teaching options. FOVU, Simplifying Ultrasound.